Many people believe that generic medicines are somehow weaker or less effective than their brand name counterparts. This is one of the most persistent and costly myths in modern medicine. It's a misconception that can cause unnecessary anxiety for patients and put a significant avoidable strain on their finances. This idea often stems from clever marketing and the simple fact that brand name drugs have been around longer, building a reputation in our minds. In reality, the difference in price does not reflect a difference in quality or therapeutic effect. Over the next few minutes, we're going to dismantle this myth piece by piece, giving you the confidence to make smarter, more informed decisions about your health and your wallet. Let's start with a very familiar example that most of us have encountered in the pharmacy aisle: ibuprofen. You might know it by the brand name Advil or Motrin. These are the boxes you see advertised on television, often with a higher price tag. Right next to them on the shelf, you will find store-brand ibuprofen or generic ibuprofen for a fraction of the cost. Both the expensive brand name pill and the affordable generic pill contain the exact same active ingredient, ibuprofen, in the exact same dose. They are both designed to relieve your headache, reduce a fever, or ease muscle pain in precisely the same way. This simple, everyday example is the perfect entry point to understanding the much larger world of generic medications. The hesitation to choose the generic option is completely understandable. When it comes to our health, we are naturally cautious and want the absolute best treatment available. So, what exactly is a generic drug? In the simplest terms, a generic drug has the same active pharmaceutical ingredient, API, as a brand name drug that was already approved and marketed. The active ingredient is the chemical component that produces the therapeutic effect. Pill cream injection. To be a generic equivalent, it must have the same active ingredient. It must be the same strength or dosage form. It must be administered the same way. For example, a pill you swallow like the brand product. It's essentially a chemical copy of the original. Think of it like a cake recipe. First bakery invents and perfects the chocolate cake. The recipe lists flour, sugar, cocoa, eggs. These are the active ingredients. After exclusivity ends, other bakeries can make the same cake. They may use different packaging or a different frosting shape, but the cake inside is the same. Generic drugs often look different from brand name pills. Different color, different shape, different size. That's intentional. Trademark and appearance rules prevent exact copies. These changes are cosmetic and come from inactive ingredients. Key point: generics must be bioequivalent to the brand drug, meaning they work the same way and deliver the same amount of active ingredient into the bloodstream over the same period. The approval process for a generic drug is anything but a rubber stamp. Health regulators, such as the FDA in the United States or the European Medicines Agency in Europe, enforce incredibly strict standards. The journey from the factory to your pharmacy is long and meticulous, designed to protect patient safety. Application, bioequivalence study, facility inspection. The manufacturer must submit a detailed application proving the generic is a true equivalent of the brand name drug. This isn't just a matter of saying they used the same ingredients. They have to prove it with data. A cornerstone of this process is the bioequivalence study. In these studies, a group of healthy volunteers is given the generic drug, and another group is given the brand name drug. Researchers then draw blood samples from the participants at regular intervals to measure drug concentration and how long the body absorbs and processes it. The results for the generic must fall within a very narrow, predefined range of the brand's results. If the generic is absorbed too slowly, too quickly, or in a different amount, it will not be approved. Beyond the drug's performance, regulators also review the manufacturing process. The company must prove it can consistently produce high quality and purity, batch after batch. Inspectors check facilities for good manufacturing practices, GMP, proving bioequivalence, ensuring manufacturing quality, and aligning the labeling. That's what gives doctors and patients confidence that a generic is a true, trustworthy substitute for the brand name drug. One of the most frequent questions I get from patients is, "Doctor, is the generic version really as safe?" The answer is an unequivocal yes. Because a generic drug has the same active ingredient and is shown to work the same way in the body, it inherently carries the same benefits and the same risks as its brand name counterpart. Regulatory agencies mandate that the safety profile must be identical. If you were to experience a side effect, such as drowsiness or an upset stomach, from a brand name medication, you would have the same likelihood of experiencing that same side effect from its generic equivalent, because the effect is caused by the active ingredient, which is the same in both. Think about it logically. The original brand name drug has already undergone years of extensive clinical trials to prove its safety and effectiveness before it was ever approved. These trials involved thousands of patients and cost hundreds of millions of dollars. Once that active ingredient has been proven safe and effective, it would be unethical and redundant to require generic manufacturers to repeat those large-scale patient trials. Instead, the focus of generic approval shifts to proving that the copy is chemically and biologically identical, that it is, in fact, the same medicine. The safety of the active ingredient itself has already been well established over many years of use, and hundreds of millions of patients around the globe safely use generic medications every single day. If generic drugs are identical in effect, why is there such a dramatic difference in price? The answer has nothing to do with quality and everything to do with economics and the patent system. When a pharmaceutical company first develops a new drug, they've invested an enormous amount of time, often over a decade, into it. They've also spent vast sums, upwards of $1 billion, on developing that drug. Research discovery, extensive clinical trials to prove safety and effectiveness. To allow them to recoup these massive costs and incentivize future innovation, the government grants them a patent. This patent gives the company the exclusive right to sell that drug for a set period, typically around 20 years from the time of filing. During that period, the brand name company is a monopolist and can set price without direct competition. The price needs to cover the cost of developing that one successful drug, and also the costs of failed candidates along the way. Marketing and advertising to build brand recognition. All of these expenses are baked into the high brand price. Everything changes when the patent expires. At that point, the market opens up, and other companies can manufacture and sell generic versions. Generic manufacturers have a huge economic advantage. They don't need to repeat the expensive, time-consuming clinical trials. Safety and efficacy are already established. They only need to prove bioequivalence, which is far less costly. They also don't typically spend large sums on advertising directly to consumers. This combination, lower research costs plus competition, drives the price down dramatically, with savings of 80 to 90% or more as competition intensifies. Sometimes the best way to understand the real-world value of generics is through a personal story. I want to tell you about my Aunt Carol. For years, she was managing high blood pressure with a very effective brand-name medication prescribed by her cardiologist. The drug worked wonderfully, and her blood pressure stayed in a healthy range. The only problem was the cost. Even with insurance, her monthly copay was nearly $100. On a fixed retirement income, that was a big burden. She was stressed and sometimes skipped a day or two near the end of the month to make the prescription last. As a physician, hearing that was a huge red flag. Inconsistent use can be very dangerous, leading to uncontrolled hypertension, increasing the risk of a heart attack or stroke. I suggested she ask her cardiologist about switching to the generic, which had just become available. She was hesitant at first, worried the cheaper pill wouldn't work and that her blood pressure might rise again.
If it's so much cheaper, it can't be as good, can it? She asked.
I explained. The active ingredient is identical. The FDA ensures bioequivalence. The price gap is due to patents and marketing, not quality. Reassured, she talked to her doctor. The cardiologist agreed the generic was suitable and wrote the new prescription. At the pharmacy, her new copay was just $10 a month. She was thrilled. The financial pressure she had felt for years was lifted almost overnight. While generic drugs are the right choice in the vast majority of cases, there are a few specific situations where your doctor might recommend that you stick with a particular brand name medication. These instances are not common, but it's important to be aware of them. The primary area of concern involves a small number of drugs known as narrow therapeutic index, NTI drugs. These are medications where a very small difference in dose or blood concentration can cause a lack of effect or a big increase in toxic side effects. The window between a helpful dose and a harmful one is very small. Examples include certain anti-seizure meds, like carbamazepine, warfarin, the blood thinner, levothyroxine, a thyroid medication. For these drugs, even minor, legally allowed differences in absorption between manufacturers can be clinically significant for a sensitive patient. So, if you are stable on a specific version of an NTI drug, brand, or a single generic, your doctor may advise against switching back and forth. The goal is maximum consistency. Another consideration is a rare allergy or sensitivity to an inactive ingredient. For example, a generic that uses a lactose filler, or a generic that contains a dye you're allergic to. In that case, your doctor or pharmacist can help find the brand name or a different generic without that ingredient. It's about the right formulation for you, not a flaw in generics. Also, after complex events like an organ transplant, follow your doctor's guidance. Transplant patients take powerful immunosuppressants to prevent rejection. In all these scenarios, the key is open communication. These decisions are made with your healthcare provider, not based on fear or misinformation. We've covered a lot of ground today. I hope this discussion has helped to demystify the world of generic drugs. We've busted the myth that cheaper means less effective, and have seen that the opposite is true. Generic medications contain the exact same active pharmaceutical ingredient as their brand name counterparts. They are required by strict regulatory bodies like the FDA to be bioequivalent, meaning they work in the same way at the same dose to produce the same therapeutic effect. They are held to the same high standards of safety, quality, and manufacturing. They are not a compromise, they are a smarter choice. The significant price difference isn't a reflection of quality, but a result of the economics of the pharmaceutical industry. Brand name companies spend billions on research, development, marketing, and they are given a period of patent protection to recoup those costs. Once that patent expires, competition from generic manufacturers who have much lower overhead drives the price down for everyone. This makes essential medicines more affordable and accessible, saving money for individual patients, insurance plans, and entire healthcare systems. So, let's bring this all back to one clear, simple, and powerful action you can take today. The next time you are at the pharmacy to pick up a prescription or at your doctor's office for a checkup, I want you to ask one simple question. Is there a generic option for my medication? This single question can start a conversation that could save you hundreds or even thousands of dollars a year, reduce your financial stress, and give you the confidence that you are making a wise and informed decision for your health. Take that step. Empower yourself with knowledge, and don't be afraid to ask. Your health and your wallet will thank you.